We're going to take it back to Brat Summer. Have a listen to this.
I went my own way and I made it. I'm your favorite reference, baby. Call me Deborah, yeah, you're so inspired.
So that's 360 by Charli XCX, part of that whole Brat Summer phenomenon in 2024. Remember, everything was lime green or neon green and Kamala's Brat and all that. So Charli XCX bringing Brat Summer back in her new mockumentary called The Moment. Sarah-Tai Black, Jackson Weaver, Joan Summers, they're all here to get into it. Welcome back to Commotion, y'all.
Hello, so Brad.
So look, we're going to get into this and other big stories for this week, but let's kick things off with the trailer for The Moment.
Hi, it's Charli XCX. Are you having a Brat Summer? I'm sorry, what is it again? Is it?
We agreed to Brat Summer forever.
Don't you just think the whole, keep having a Brat Summer thing is a bit cringe?
It's all cringe. Good to go again?
So a moment from The Moment trailer where Charli XCX is playing a version of herself. Joan, I'm going to start with you because how could I not? You are wearing a neon green Brat t-shirt. And I understand that, even before you saw this movie, you said, look, I don't even care if this movie is going to be any good. So I'd like to know, first of all, what you meant by that, but also how you feel about the movie now that you have seen it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I went into the movie with the expectation that no matter what was going to happen inside of it, I'm just happy that we have pop stars and artists that are interested in making art and exploring art and pushing the boundaries of their own art. And that was really what I was looking for from this film. I mean, longtime Angels will know that Charli has always been sort of obsessed with art and fame and celebrity culture and Hollywood. And this is really
is Angels like the term for Charli's fans?
Yeah,
is that okay? Thank you.
It is they bring it up in the movie. But yeah, no, longtime Angels will know from back before Brat Summer, and this is something where going into it, I was reminded a lot of the run of movies Madonna was making in the 90s and in the, throughout her career, taking all these big swings. She became a children's book author. This is something pop stars used to do. And I think that went away as pop stars became more and more pigeonholed by the industry and more pigeonholed by audience expectations. And it's just refreshing to see someone take a big swing and maybe to a lot of people miss on that big swing, but at least she's out here swinging, and it's very Brat to swing and a miss and break something in the process.
Yeah, I love the Madonna reference because certainly Truth or Dare was something I was thinking about when I was watching this movie. Jackson, I understand you are not an angel. You somehow missed Brat Summer, or you maybe tuned it out.
Yeah.
So I guess that makes you an outsider coming into this movie.
Yeah.
So how did you feel about it?
I mean, I miss Brat Summer in some ways. I'll say, obviously I knew that Kamala is Brat, but I also thought that the Apple song was by Chappell Roan. So I was not really clued in. But I think as a movie, I was really surprised. I think I should be the one that kind of hates this movie because it's theoretically inaccessible and theoretically a little bit navel-gazy to make a movie about yourself in which you play yourself. And we saw how badly that can go last year with The Weeknd's Hurry Up Tomorrow, which is one of the worst things I think I've seen. But I was so surprised by the, I'm just going to call it bravery of Charli XCX to be willing to portray herself in a way that is maybe not incredibly flattering, as has been mentioned, not a way that goes in step with how brand managers and PR people would want a celebrity to put themselves out there. There's so much in this that is revelatory in how you can reach superstar levels while also not really believing in yourself. And as a character, the Charli XCX of this movie is so often letting herself be told what is important and is so often letting her insecurities guide her decision-making in ways that are very negative for both herself and her fans. It doesn't make her come across as a monster, but it makes her come across as a human while also being weirdly funny in this dry way that I really appreciated. Some of it might be a little bit inaccessible, but I mean, again, I wasn't an angel before, but I think I'm halfway there now.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, I do think I appreciate that in this mockumentary form, in the fakery she's putting on, there's actually something brutally honest about what she's looking at in terms of this industry. Sarah-Tai, I mean, we should talk about what this movie's about. I mean, it is largely about this label, these label executives trying to keep Brat Summer going and trying to capitalize on it for as long as possible. And in the film, you actually hear Charli XCX say, don't you think the whole keep having a Brat Summer is a bit cringe? Can you talk to me about how cringe plays out as a thread throughout this movie?
I mean, literally, I was really entertained and enthralled, as were the hundreds of other gay people in the movie theater with me. With the cringe comedy, like I laughed a lot, and I was not expecting to. I'm not an angel, but I'm neutral. I'm Charlie XCX neutral. I think I'm also a millennial, so I lived through ground zero of a lot of her inspiration. So I'm not coming at it through that Gen Z lens of nostalgia. But I think that how her and the film are kind of trying to investigate cringe as like this capitalistic impulse to keep pushing something that is popular and successful even further and further until it is completely the antithesis of what it was before was really interesting. I think and as the angels have told me, Charlie is someone who really wants to have her cake and eat it too a lot of the time, and that can be very grating. And I found that to be so in the film in terms of like Daxon was saying, the navel gazingness of it all. Like sponsorships and branding are like a huge critical target of the film, but it's also like the film has so much product placement and branding within it that it's like it kind of comes to a point where if you want to sincerely engage with the criticism of it, you have to literally criticize the film. One of my favorite cringe aspects, of course, was Alexander Skarsgård character Johannes. Amazing.
He's having so much fun.
He's having so much fun being this like symbolic vessel of like completely hollow pop stardom and all of the kind of cultural artifacts to prop that up. Side note, the costuming and hair is amazing to the point of being re-traumatizing.
We should say, I mean, he's playing like the guy that's brought on as a director of the concert movie that they're trying to push out there, and is all of a sudden like trying to take over all these ideas, right?
Yeah, very much like a concert film in the vein of like something you might see Taylor Swift do. There's a lot of like indirect jabs at her. But I think that the thing that's actually cringe about the film for me is the fact that once you become so performatively self-serious and self-aware about your art, it kind of ruins what it is. You know what I mean? Like I think Brat as an album, as a tour, as a cultural zeitgeist, it's exactly what it's supposed to be, nothing more, nothing less. And I think that when you try to put this specific kind of lens on it, it kind of shows you the limitations of it that you maybe weren't looking at in the first place.
You definitely feel those limitations when you come up to the last act, right? Where it's like they have to kind of throw like kind of something that didn't feel like it really comes from
Safdie-esque breakdown that doesn't really land.
Which didn't feel true to her, I think, in some ways. So yeah. Well, look, Joan, I mean, a lot of what Sarah-Tai is talking about is the way Charli XCX is always engaged with fame and the idea of the it girl in her music, in her artistry. And, you know, that carries over to some of the casting in this film as well, because, you know, she also assembles this like interesting cast of her peers, right? Like Kate Berlant, Rachel Sennott, Kylie Jenner, who are all, by the way, playing themselves. So what does it mean for her to bring them along for this ride?
Yeah, I think I described them as like the LA brunette Avengers of this film, you know, and that like they all in their own way represent the sort of culture and the sort of art that Charli is most fascinated by, whether it is like the sort of pinnacle of hot it girl fame like Kylie, or someone like Kate Berlant, who for years and years and years has been a cult comedy classic and somebody that, you know, a lot of gay people say, why is Kate Berlant not more famous than she is right now? You know, and I think Rachel Sennott for a moment had a bit of like an insider thing and now has broken through. And I think Rachel Sennett's character is the most interesting foil to Charli, because something that Charli is really doing in this film is saying, you know, I am somebody who came from outside of this world. I am not necessarily marketable. I will keep to CBC broadcast standards, but there are things that she partakes in and things that she does that don't necessarily align with brand values throughout the film and also in her real life. And then she becomes the #1 global superstar. And those are not things you get to do. And I think a Rachel Sennott character who kind of comes from this comedy world and is now, you know, walking in fashion magazines and front row at Fashion Week and sort of the toast of the town. Those two conflicting personalities are really interesting. I think it cuts right at the heart of what Charli's getting at in this film, which I think, like you said earlier, is very insular, very self-aggrandizing, very much too in on the joke, too in on the nose. But I found that kind of interesting. You know, she sees herself as the villain of this story. She sees herself as the villain of Brat Summer. You know, the film ends on a very cynical note and one that I think was a big creative swing for the filmmakers, you know, not casting her as someone who rose above this or who transcended this summer to create something beautiful. She ends it as the villain. She caves to
Yeah.
all of it.
I find that interesting, the idea that she's the villain, so to speak, or at least she sees herself that way. Because Sarah-Tai, I mean, we got to talk about kind of the different personalities of Charli XCX, right? Because she herself has described her character in this movie as a monster. And you know, if you look at her music, I mean, a lot of the vibe you get is party girl. But then you look at the press tour, and I'm sure you caught Charli XCX visiting the Criterion Closet, where she is, you know, touting Ingmar Bergman's Autumn Sonata and David Cronenberg's The Shrouds, and really, you know, bolstering her cinephile credentials. So, I mean, what do you make of the way she plays with her persona?
I feel like this kind of like ironic cocaine chic self-mythologizing, self-narrativizing lore is part of her brand at this point. It's maybe not as interesting to me as it might be to others. Some people, as again, I'm a millennial. I was on ground zero during indie sleaze. I had a Berghain moment as well. Like, this isn't like that revolutionary to me. And I think, like, as a card carrying member of the woke mob, it's just not that deep. It's just not that deep. And I think trying to make it that deep again, like, exposes its limitations. We, of course, like, had her Substack post or Substack essay republished on her Substack, pardon me, last year in summer 2025, and we had people circulating that screenshot meme of like, the party ended an hour ago and he's still here. And you know, I think that Brat as an album, as a zeitgeist, is really fun and really real and really artistically impactful, but at the same time it also sounds a little bit like Schitt's Creek, a little bit Alexis, and that's okay. And that's okay. Like, not, it doesn't have to be that serious. And I think that that self-seriousness of her persona isn't really built to last, because it's like you stop telling and keep showing. Like, you are already, she's kind of like talking her way out of her own success. And again, the angels have told me that that's classic Charli. I think there's a really biting line in the film where someone, I can't remember who, says to the fictional film version of Charli, you need the entire world to know that you're an artist in order to make your art. And I think there's so many moments in the film like that that are so like, so yeah, like, oh yeah, the facialist. There's so many moments in the film that are so biting and cutting like that, but then the fact that they can't really land the criticality of it kind of like underplays that for me.
I hear that. Oh, go ahead.
Can I jump in for a sec too? Because I think there's an interesting point to bounce off of that, which is that I think I've heard you say, you know, I'm a millennial, and as a millennial too, I think one thing that got lost in Brat Summer that she investigates in this film is that Charli is firmly a millennial. I mean, she's in her 30s. Brat is an album about being in your 30s. It is not an album about being a 20-year-old party girl. It's about being a party girl way past the time people think you should. I mean, she's been partying at underground raves since the 2000s. She started as like an underground rave electronic musician as a teenager in like warehouses in London. You know, that's like her bread and her butter. And I think that all got collapsed with Brat. And that's very much what this film is about, how all of her career gets put into this one single moment, and people see that single moment as all there is, and she sees it as all there is, but there's all this stuff before and after that nobody cares about, not even the label, not even her own people around her. And I found that very interesting tension in the film.
You know,
yeah, it's very like what takes over your art once you put it out into the world.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you guys gave me so much to think about there, but right now I'm hung up on you harping over being millennials while I feel very Gen X. So thank you for that. Okay. So look, we're going to leave The Moment there and Charli XCX there for now, but look, Moment is in theaters now. I'm Radheyan Simonpillai sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. You're listening to Commotion. I've got Jackson Weaver, Sarah-Tai Black, and Joan Summers here. And the next story we got to talk about is a scandal surrounding the Safdie brothers. This is the duo behind movies like these really grimy, chaotic thrillers like Good Times, starring Robert Pattinson, and Uncut Gems, starring Adam Sandler. One of the brothers, Josh Safdie, he's the director of Marty Supreme, which is both a box office hit, starring Timothée Chalamet, and also, you know, it's up for 9 Oscars this year. But days after those Oscar nominations were announced, Page Six Hollywood reported the latest on a troubling story about Josh's alleged behavior on the Good Time set, on set of Good Time. And I should mention the same journalist, Tatiana Siegel, reported on a lot of what happened on that set for Variety back in 2023. And Jackson, I mean, can you walk us through all the allegations here?
Yeah, so the allegations, because they are allegations, are that in the set of a film that they made together, Josh and Benny, Good Time, they're shooting it about 10 years ago, a producer on that film theoretically was speaking with a 17-year-old who was not really an actor, didn't have much experience. They booked this young girl to be in the film. She didn't have an agent. She didn't have anyone to negotiate for her. She was cast in this film as a sex worker, and she was asked to film a sex scene with a man who had recently gotten out of prison. He said and did things on this set that made her very uncomfortable, made her feel very unsafe. There were court documents in which she expressed those thoughts, feeling those thoughts. Josh Safdie then found out about her age after the scene was shot, after they cut later that day. Other brother, Benny Safdie, found out years later and fired that producer. And then also that producer theoretically dated that girl afterwards, adding more context to this whole situation. This is allegedly why they split up, why they are not working together anymore. And the actual narrative outside of that is a little bit less certain. There's theoretically no bad blood between them. There's an interview with Filmmaker Magazine, which that was expressed. Benny was at the premiere of Marty Supreme, but he has also said they're probably not going to work together in the future. But outside of that, there is just this fog of confusion over what happened, though the issue does really rest on a vulnerable 17-year-old girl who was put into a situation in which she did not feel safe. Yeah,
so incredibly disturbing story. Joan, I mean, I got to ask you how you feel about the way this scandal is being talked about and unfolding in the press.
Yeah, I mean, before I was a 365 party girl, I worked at women's magazine Jezebel, and I was reporting through a lot of the Me Too scandals and ensuing fallout through that. And something that always struck me about that time in both my career and also just the stories that I was told by various victims was that ultimately what that became was about very famous people and award shows. And it was less about these young or old vulnerable victims and women who were sort of at the fringes of this industry, who slipped through the cracks of regulations, who slipped through the cracks of sets, who slipped through the cracks of rules and laws. And it became about the Oscars. It became about how is this going to affect somebody's bottom line. It became about how is this going to look on the cover of a magazine. And I think that that is something that has stuck with me for this story. You know, it is not ultimately a story as it is being reported about a young, then vulnerable young girl being taken advantage of allegedly. It is a story about how this is going to affect the Oscars. And it just is like, yeah, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And on the topic of sexual abuse in Hollywood, alleged or not, that has not changed since Me Too.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I mean, and we should say that the Safdies have not commented on this story, even though they've been reached by The Hollywood Reporter and so many other outlets. Sarah-Tai, I mean, what do you make of kind of the Hollywood response, the industry response, or the online response to these reports?
I mean, as always, disappointed but not surprised. I think that Joan really hit the nail on the head that this is functioning right now in terms of the news cycle as more of a gotcha. It's more of a antithesis to the social capital that they have built for themselves and now benefit from. I think it's really interesting in a very disgusting, violent way to see like what level of social capital does a person have to lose in order for allegations to be taken seriously. You know, like even someone like Johnny Depp, who I think, speaking of cringe, is now the definition of cringe. And he waged an all-out media war on Amber Heard, and to some extents and in certain demographics was seen to have quote unquote won that. So it's like, does someone have to be a Brett Ratner? Or does someone have to go fully MAGA to be kind of held accountable for their actions in the most base level way, which is factual, caring, knowledgeable reporting? Like most things in the world, it's very depressing, and I want better for all of us, and I especially want better for women and girls.
Yeah. I mean, your example is so on point because they even think of like Woody Allen, like these allegations around him that have been around forever, but it's not until he loses a certain cinephile clout that everyone's willing to actually really address that, right? So look, this is a really troubling story, and we are going to set that aside and but still pay attention to it. Before we go, I do want to switch gears here, talk about the 2026 Winter Olympics that have begun in Milano Cortina. Mariah Carey is singing in Italian at the opening ceremony. Sarah-Tai, I know you're here for that.
She's singing Volare. She's singing Volare. Not since the season finale of The Blacklist, where we got a inspired Gypsy Kings rendition, have I been so jovial and thankful for something so inconsequential, but which nonetheless impresses upon me a sense of joy and levity.
Yeah. And I feel like you could talk about this forever, but unfortunately, that's not actually what we're here to talk about, right? Because we're here to talk about another pop star, Calgary's own Tate McRae, because she's facing some heat over an Olympics ad. Have a listen.
Oh, hi. I'm a bit lost. Tate McRae? Oh, I'm nobody. Nobody's girl, that is. I'm trying to get to Milan for an amazing opening ceremony and meet Team USA.
So that's Tate McRae in this ad where she's on the slopes, stopping by to talk to an owl. And the part that, of course, everyone is paying attention to, I don't know if you caught this, but it's Canadian pop star Tate McRae cheering on Team USA. And of course, a lot of people on the internet, at least on this side of the border, are not having this. Joan, when you look back at the year that Tate McRae has had, does this Olympic ad actually make sense to you?
Oh, it makes complete sense. Like, listen, I want to say this with complete respect because, to be clear, I am critical of this choice. But unfortunately, I think the reason you see so many non-US pop stars move to the US, move to Los Angeles, and sort of become embedded in the American political media, whatever, what have you, machine is because that is the path to success, not standing up with Canada and doing an ad with Canada. It's doing an ad with the American team. That's what's going to pay the money. That's what's going to put you on with this broadcaster. That's what's going to get you in at various different variety hours and award shows and, broadcasts at the end of the year, the Jingle Ball. Like, these sorts of things are all inside of the American machine. And for a pop star like Tate, who has very much waged an all-out assault on the pop landscape and wants to be a pop girl, wants to be taken seriously as that, wants to be seen as a very strong contender, whether or not those Britney allegations stick, I think that it makes total sense for her to accept a big old check from the United States of America, despite how it might look. I think that that's really the ultimate criticism here.
Right. Listen, building up on that, Jackson, and we only have a minute here, but I need to say, first of all, Tate McRae did kind of issue a sort of apology in a way, posting on Instagram a photo of herself as a child waving a Canadian flag saying, y'all know I'm Canada down. But of course, this is after there are been some headlines calling it treason. They've called this treason. So, I mean, really quickly, what is your reaction to all of this?
I mean, as has been said, Canada willingly gave up its own star system. We wrote articles at our unit about that. You can read Want to Watch Canadian, the Trade War, Here's Why That's So Hard. We specifically got into how and why Canada chose to not have a star system, and that's why stars go south. But as to why people are upset about it, I think it makes perfect sense. I mean, we saw Josh Ross get similar complaints last year when he said the United States was the best country in the world. Wayne Gretzky has had his reputation publicly darkened a little bit, let's say, due to his coziness in the United States because of our fractious relationship. And as it comes to Tate McRae's apology, I don't know if it's really ringing as true as it could. I will say that last year, the inaugural Canadian word of the year was maple washing, in which brands try and make things look more Canadian to associate themselves with the upswelling of Canadian pride. I think some people may be seeing this a bit as maple washing, that apology with the Canadian flag when she was 2 or 3 years old. As to whether or not she's going to rebuild her brand from here, I have no idea, but I mean, the news cycle moves on.
And we are going to move on. So thank you all so much. We got to leave it there. But thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Sarah-Tai Black is a film critic whose work can be found at the Globe and Mail, CBC Arts, and here on Commotion. Jackson Weaver is a senior writer at CBC Entertainment, and Joan Summers is the senior editor at Paper Magazine. And that's it for Commotion today. I'm Radheyan Simonpillai sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and I'll see you on Monday.